Well, we're back for part two of all the movies that we saw in theater. We saw other movies, but all the movies we saw at AMC this year,
Yep. Or
last year,
last year. Yeah,
actually.
this yeah. Have we seen any movies
No,
this
we
year?
haven't. You know what? Technically, we saw Babygirl in January because we were sick at the end of December. So technically, we've seen a movie ish.
Nice. Well, we'll get to that one here in a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah. We need to go see A Complete Unknown before it's out of
Yeah.
theaters. That's the next one we need to see. But last week we left off with Deadpool and Wolverine. And this week we're starting with the movie that got my first interview with the director, which is Oddity. The director and writer is Damian McCarthy. And yeah, I was so excited when he responded to my DM. But when we were on the way to this movie, I was telling you how, because we had seen Long Legs recently, and there was all kinds of discourse about Long Legs that was like, this is the scariest movie I've seen in a decade. Um, and I liked it, but I wasn't terrified. Um, and so then when we were on our way to this movie, one of the TikTokers that Kit Laser that I follow, who's a film bro, was the one who first talked about this movie. And he was like, this one terrified me and Long Legs did not, which was intriguing to me because then it got me stuck on my, the fun soapbox I got on about what makes things scary and how subjective it is, almost more subjective than like humor, I think. Um, because it just is. It's just super subjective. So on the way there, I was like, okay, so this guy said he was even more scared. And I was like, I wonder what that means. And like, how will I know? Like, will I ever get so scared that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't separate the movie from reality or something like that? And then we went to it, and there is a moment in this movie where you turn to me and you're like, I'm fucking terrified.
They did such a
So,
good job of
yeah.
like dragging it out in a way that wasn't like bad, but it just like made you
Yes.
scared. You're like, something's going on with that bell. I don't know what, but
Right.
or is like just various other elements that were just like this is creepy. I think
Yeah.
creepy to me is like what scary is. Like I don't like
Hmm.
the body horror, like I don't like
Yeah.
the sounds of gore. I
No.
don't like any of that. And it doesn't scare me. It's just gross. But
Yes.
it is
That's
like
what I realized this year too.
the eerie slash creepy stuff where it's like, ooh, that that'd be
Yeah.
kind of creepy. Like people just
Yeah.
like
The gist of this one is a woman who is blind and kind of clairvoyant, not clairvoyant, what is the right word? She can, when she touches items, she can like experience the things that the oddities experience. That's where we get the name. And so she has a shop of oddities, but she's a twin and her sister is brutally murdered. Um, and she basically wants to figure out who did it and get her revenge. And so that's the gist of it. What was cool about it to me is it like blends paranormal, but it's not like only paranormal. It also is a lot. It's definitely a mystery because she's trying to figure out what happened. It's a thriller because you have moments in the present too where you're like, oh my god, what's going to happen? Um, it's like it's a murder mystery. What was the other thing that it reminded me of? I can't remember, but it had lots of different genre. Oh, it's horror as well. So it just had so many genre elements, and it is terrifying. I
yeah.
rewatched it the morning before I interviewed him, so like I knew everything that was gonna happen, and it was still so fucking scary.
That was one way to start your day off. That's for sure.
yeah, I wasn't, I was busy that week, so I woke up at 5 a.m. because my interview was at like 7, I think. Or no, that wouldn't be right. The interview was at like 9 or something.
Yeah, it was early.
It was an early one because he's in Ireland. Cool
Yeah.
fact, you can listen to the whole interview if this piques your interest. But the house that he shot it in was like one of his friends' places, and it was like one of the few places he could shoot, and so he kind of constructed his first movie and this one around the resource he had available, which I thought was cool.
The I was just pulling up some images of it, and it was just like the wood, the guy, like the wood machine, like I don't even know
Yes.
what you would call that
Oh,
monster.
folklore, the wooden man. So folklore is another genre
Hmm.
item.
Yeah, and that it's like you you were expecting it to do like it wasn't very jump scary. I guess maybe
Mm-mm.
that like that another thing that just annoys me about scary movies are
Mm-hmm.
just jump scares where it's like, especially when you're watching them in theaters where it's like so loud and like
Yeah.
normally I like in the last episode I just geeked out about the sound because I think it enhances a movie so much, but it also just like when it's like just shrieking sounds and stuff like that where it's like your
Yeah.
body regardless of what's on the screen is just going to jump, and I just like I dread the like jump scare sound more than I do like any of the visuals.
Right.
It's like
I get
I
that.
just I don't feel like they did that with that. I just kind of like they left
Mm-mm.
so much to like your imagination, which I think is what made it so creepy. Where you're like, is this about to happen? And so you start thinking about all the things that could be happening or could happen, and so you're bracing for all of this stuff, but at the same time you're just like nothing's happening. So it's just like
Yeah.
constant tension building and
Mm-hmm.
wild.
You and Hallie said basically the same thing. Because when I did the episode with her about like what is scary, she and I both talked about like the building tension is like the most engaging type of scary. And she said the same thing where it's like almost what you don't see that is
Yeah,
freaking you out too.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
fascinating.
otherwise, yeah, it was like such a, and the ending was really good. It was like it was just
Mm-hmm.
it all like the story itself was really good too. It was just kind of like,
Yes.
yeah, this is all just creepy, and
Yeah.
like yeah, it was fun. Like it made me want to go take items to somebody like that and be like, so what can you tell me?
Yes. I know
But
we need to find someone.
then I'll be creeped out again probably for a month.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, it was
That
good though.
image did stick with me. We can't go into details because if you haven't watched it, you don't want to know. But I hadn't had like a movie image stick with me um like overnight or like where it comes to my mind when it's dark. And a couple times when you've traveled, a couple times, it hasn't happened in a while now. I would like imagine that and I'm like, "Oh my god." So that's what's really scary for me is when like even thinking about it in the middle of the night scares you.
That's yeah. It was good though.
But
I
now you
I
guys have to go
enjoyed it.
watch it.
It was a really good scary movie.
Yeah, it was great. And he was very cool to talk to.
Yeah, and you were very excited about that interview.
I
That was
was.
like one of your big gets
That
for
was
the
one of the
year. I feel
big, yeah,
like
highlights of
you were
2024.
surprised. You were like there's I feel like every
Yeah.
movie you leave, you're like, oh, it'd be so cool to. It was just like
Yeah.
how you started the entire podcast. It was like you'd finish a
Yeah.
book, you'd be like, oh, I just want to talk to the author about this. I just want to like,
Yep.
and so it was like like you're dipping your toe into the world of like, oh, I just saw a movie, now I just want to go talk to the author about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really cool to like literally it was like watching you years ago, like when you started
Mm-hmm.
with Between the Lines, and then you reached out to people and they were like, yeah, I'll talk to you, and you're like, you will. So
Right.
it was yeah, so which is what had you waking up at 5 to
Yeah.
watch a scary movie to like prep for the interview. So it was
Yes.
so that was cool.
Yeah, because with his too, there was a delay. So I DM'd him right after I saw it. And then he was so busy with like his release schedule, like that it was like 3.5 weeks later, he DM'd me and was like, I'll do it. And I was like, oh my God. So it just like came back up one day randomly. And I was like, well,
Yeah,
it's happening.
that was
Yeah.
cool.
So cool. I'm gonna get at least 2 directors in 2025, if not more.
Probably more.
Very different genre whiplash here. The
Yeah,
next one we saw was It Ends With Us, which like
I went into that one blind. I'm not even going to talk about all the recent stuff. I'm going
I
to
was
talk
gonna
about the
say
movie,
we
but
don't.
like because I was thoroughly impressed by that whole movie. Like
Me too.
I enjoyed the like all the way down to like the unrealistic lovey-dovey scenes of like, oh, she's in a
Yeah,
flower shop, that's cute, or like
yeah.
even the scene like where they're like flirting back and forth on the roof in the very beginning. It was just like
Hmm.
they just did everything so well where it's like it made
Yeah.
you believe that they were like
Hmm.
kind of tangoing back and forth, and it
Right.
was just like it was fun just because it was like, oh, you like, does she like him, does he like her, does like, is she like, you just kind of felt the back and forth, but then like
Hmm.
then they tie in the way that they like would bounce back to like their childhood, and like when you'd
Hmm.
see like who the other like the guy was that she referenced it on that roof, and it was just like um
Hmm.
and then like all the subtle things that they would place in throughout the movie, like with the oak tree or something, like just
Hmm.
little things like that like you don't think they matter until they make them matter. And I just thought that
Hmm.
that kind of like visual storytelling I thought was so fun, just because it was like everything meant something. Like it,
Hmm.
and I think there's a pretty, you see that in a lot of really good films, I feel like, but like
Right.
yeah, it was just like subtle things though, like that. Like the name of the guy's restaurant was after. Like it was all
Yeah.
of that little stuff. You're like, and then you like get those moments of like, oh, that,
Oh.
oh,
Hmm.
yeah, like that
Yeah.
stuff was so fun to like see unfold. But then like I went
Hmm.
into the movie blind as well. Like I didn't know what it
Yeah.
was
You didn't
about,
know much at
and
all.
I go to a lot of art movies blind now that I think about it.
That's
Like
true.
I like
I'm just like, hey, we need to do this.
yeah, you're like, hey, I heard this is doing really well, or this is
Yeah.
really good. Um, and that's like part of the fun for me is just like seeing what it's about to be about. And so,
Hmm.
but with It Ends With Us, like even like the scene after she has a kid and is like,
Hmm.
I was like,
Mm.
damn, that was powerful. And it was
I
just
know.
like everything, like just great performances, great like visual storytelling with the narratives going back and forth, and like timelines, and I
Hmm.
like timeline hopping sometimes can be a little bit tricky for me to follow, but I follow
Yeah.
along. And then
This
like
isn't like
the song
cerebral
started
time
going and I
hopping.
was like, oh, it's just so good.
Yeah.
Everything's just good.
I
Ricochet.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just it was like a powerful movie, and I
It
really
is.
enjoyed it. And um it's unfortunate that everything happened from it, but it was
I
like
know.
still I just feel like it was a really cool message of like how she like took all of her power and like
Back. Hmm.
yeah, took it back and was like,
Hmm.
no, I'm this is the way it's gonna be.
It ends with
And
us. Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
I did
I was
too.
crying at the end of that movie. I
I
was
cried a couple of times, more than I thought I would.
yeah, I wasn't even expecting to cry. I didn't know what to expect. But I was like,
I really liked the movie. And yeah, it was even when it came out, there was already drama happening around it. So it was like not that hard to talk about the movie, but it's like there was just so much drama around it. But I'm like, but it was good. Like
yeah,
it really was good. And it's like some people, it was so weird. And I won't get into all the discourse, but a big part of it was like there were these people that were angry that were like, it had flowers on the cover, so I thought it was a rom-com. And I'm like, guys, watch a
don't
trailer.
judge a book by the cover.
Read a synopsis. Like if you're taking your, some people would be like, I brought my 12-year-old daughter. And I'm like, well, if you're taking your daughter, do a little bit of research. Like, don't go in blind. In this case, if you're bringing a kid. So it had all kinds of weird whatever about it, but I think it's a super powerful message for a lot of people. And I don't think this is spoilers. And I also think all of us know that it's about domestic violence at this point. Um, they did something really cool where, when you were talking about visually, they did something really cool visually where when the abuse did start happening, like she kind of wasn't seeing all of it
Mhm.
or would even see it a different way. And so then the way they showed her shifting and like deciding that she wanted something different, um, then you see the rest of the scenes and what like actually happened. And that was really cool too, because I know that's like the hardest part is sometimes you can't see it when it's like up close.
Mhm.
And then when you get some perspective, you're like, oh,
Yeah,
this was bad.
this actually is what happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was.
I will say though, I'm not getting into the actual drama that's now happening because that's its whole other own can of worms. But it oddly is a testament to how good of actors both of them technically are if they hated each other this much
Yeah,
because they had chemistry.
yeah, like the acting was
Like,
marvelous.
that's what my big takeaway is. I'm like, Jesus Christ, they made that movie while like hating each other. You couldn't tell. So, I mean, both
Mhm.
of them, props to their acting.
Yeah, that was really good. And then you went to a couple of movies.
You went to Strange Darling. That's the next one.
Oh, was it? Oh, I was looking at the next one. I need to pull up what Strange Darling was.
Okay, so Strange Darling is there. It is. It's so hard to talk about this one without spoilers, so I always end up just reading it. Nothing is
Oh,
what it seems when a twisted one night stand spirals into a serial killer's vicious murder spree. I always have to look up the synopsis for that one because I don't want to give anything away. So that's the synopsis. We have like a woman kind of going on a date with a guy for the first time is part of it, and then there's this serial killer happening in that area. Um, this one was another one visually so pretty. I think it was only shot on 35 millimeter.
hmm
I think they said that at the beginning of the movie.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It was on a Kodak 35 millimeter.
okay.
Um,
Um, the colors were like very vibrant. That was also something that people talked about a lot at the time that it came out because we've actually kind of leaned into thrillers where like it's all the like blue teal or like dark and almost gray, and this is like very vibrant, and the use of like red and blue, this is, and the lighting. There's another one where people talked about just the lighting in the hotel room, like this doesn't give anything away, in the truck, like they just were really creative with that. But the other fun part is this is not told linearly, and so I think it's 6 chapters, and I think at the beginning it literally says
like,
chapter 6,
yeah, it bounces around. I'm like,
and then it
love that.
bounces around, and each chapter changes your perception of the previous chapters. It is stunning. I think I think if I had to pick one of my favorites of the year, like an actual favorite, this might be it because it was just so fucking good.
Yeah, it was, it was like, yeah. I'm trying. I don't even know how much like what's considered a spoiler
I
to
know
just
it's
say
hard to
this
talk
much,
about this one.
but like it is just like the way that everything just does flip on itself, and you're like, wait
Mm-hmm.
a minute, it's not this way, but they were making it
Mm-hmm.
seem that way is like such a whole like testimony to life in general. But it's like what you see is one thing might not be the thing, and then all of a sudden you're like, what? So, but even like going back to like what you just said about it ends with us is like it is like when they expanded upon the scenes of the abuse, like
Yes.
you didn't see the full picture, but then you got the full picture and you're like, oh, that changes literally everything. And they just did that
Yeah.
like the whole time.
Yeah.
Like the whole time. It was you
Every
didn't know
chapter.
what was gonna happen next. Like you didn't
Mm-hmm.
have a clue. Like you couldn't even predict because it was
Mm-mm.
so like but like in even describing it, it sound like when you're like hearing yourself talk about it out loud, you're like, what is this movie about? And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
somehow they strung together things in not order and made it make sense in such
Yeah.
a perfect way. It's
Yeah. what I talked to Hallie about too is what blew my mind is that even with it out of order, it like fits the Save the Cat writes a novel, or just the Save the Cat framework. And so that's the even cooler part, is that like the realizations you're having, even though it's told out of order, he uses the out of order to like have a crazy midpoint and to have an even crazier climax, even if it's, I think, the first chapter or the second chapter that I can't. Yeah, it just functions on both levels, in and out of order. And I'm obsessed with nonlinear storytelling, so it was just great. I still want to talk to JT Mullner, who is the writer and director. Have not made contact with him. If anyone can connect me with him and you think he'd be good for the podcast, please connect us because
Shoot.
I want to talk about this movie.
Yeah, it was good though. I highly
Mhm.
recommend it if you're in the mood for a thriller.
That was kind of what I said when I made content about it too. I'm like, I can pretty much say if you enjoy thrillers of any kind, you will 100% enjoy this. It's like one of those that like you just know will work for almost anyone who likes the genre in general.
Yep.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's good for that.
Man, we had so many good ones in a row because the next one is Blink Twice, which is written and directed by Zoe Kravitz.
Oh, I forgot.
Um,
Yeah,
oh my
I never
god,
remember the names of movies.
this is
Yeah, this one.
actually, this is the other one that would be tied for probably my favorite of the year. Like I loved both of these equally. Blink Twice is another one that does the gist of it is a cocktail waitress named Frida meets this like kind of douchey tech bro billionaire Slater, who's Channing Tatum. Um, and he like invites her to come with some of his friends to like party on an island that he owns. So she goes there and everything is like amazing until it's not, per usual. And then it just gets extremely dark by the end of it. It's another one though that uses red, green, and I think yellow, not blue. I think it's red, green, and
No.
yellow. Used colors so specifically. I'm not going to get into it because I will spoil some things, but each color coincides with something. And she is just, for this to be her directorial debut, it was a beautiful thriller as well. And sinister as fuck by the end.
Yeah, it took a dark turn. It was,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like, yeah, they had you guessing though the whole time, where you're just
Yes.
like, what's about to happen? And you kind of figure it out with the character, which I enjoy those.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that, like where it's kind of like you're seeing their perspective, but then it's revealing more perspectives kind of throughout, and
Yes.
then you're getting more background on the other people that are involved, and you're just like, oh, so like every
Yeah.
little bit of information that you find out, like solves part of a puzzle, but then like opens up another one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That one was fantastic.
That was fun. Yeah, that was a fun one. It was
So good.
creepy. It was very creepy towards the end, but it
Very
was.
creepy. And then I mean, I think we know this where you generally know where this is headed, like not good things.
Mhm.
And there's one of my favorite good for her scenes ever happens in that movie. So, anyone who loves that,
Yep.
there's that.
No, just really
But
good thriller movie.
yeah, it really was. Um then we saw My Old Ass um with Aubrey Plaza, and I want to get her name right because she was so good. Maisie
Oh,
Stella.
yeah, you should just read the.
Yes. So, an 18th birthday mushroom trip brings Elliot face to face with her wisecracking 39-year-old self. When the older Elliot starts handing out warnings about what her younger self should and shouldn't do, she realizes she has to rethink everything about family, love, and what's becoming a transformative summer. I thought this one was going to be super funny, and it did have some very funny moments, but it is also like a really emotionally wrenching coming of age, actually, is what it really is. It's just so good. I cried a lot in that one, especially at the end.
I'm just looking through some of the photos right now. I'm just trying to jog my memory. Like I remember to it like raises like the big question of like if you go back and like give yourself advice, like would
Mm-hmm.
you actually take it or would you still
Yeah,
want to live that life so you could have that experience? And it was like
exactly.
so it gets you thinking on a pretty deep level, but like
Yes.
they do like soften some of it with some like
Yes.
good like they'll end a scene with kind of a chuckle where it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're not like they'll like really build the tension up and like relieve some of it with like a one liner or
Yes.
something and then kind of like okay all right
Right.
we'll we'll move on, but
Yeah.
it was like yeah I remember you were
It's really powerful, and without giving it away, like truly what the ending is, it's as much a reminder of like, oh, you do get wiser, you come of age, you learn things, but it's like also this really pretty ode, especially at the end, to connecting with your inner child
yeah
and like making some of your decisions from that place, which is always a really powerful message.
yeah
And
yeah
Aubrey Plaza is amazing.
yeah she did everybody's so fun in that movie too, like she was funny but then like would kind of flip to like she's like you find out like you always think like the older version of you is going to have it figured out but then you're like
Mm-hmm.
realizing like oh I'm learning stuff from my younger version of myself and it's so that like, it was cool to see that kind of back and forth happening, but
Yep.
and I thought it was like just cool the way that they communicated. It was like
I
oh
know.
that's kind of a fun concept of like oh
Mm-hmm.
I can just call you or text. I don't know if they texted but like I just feel like
They
it was very
both.
casual the way that they were able to communicate with themselves and I was like
Mm-hmm.
that's just that's just kind of like a fun plot to like run with.
Mm-hmm. For anyone who is interested in or knows anything about internal family systems, which is like the internal system of your personality that protects you, motivates you, like all the different facets of it. I saw a few different therapists doing stuff about how that this movie's a really functional way of like seeing that, like interacting with your different selves that way. So that part's cool too. If you get into IFS at all, it's kind of a, it's just a good version of that.
Yep.
It's fantastic. I
Yeah.
also, Megan Park wrote and directed it. Just want to have her on the pod too. I'm going to keep saying everyone until I get everyone.
Hey, might as well.
um,
That'd be.
and then we saw the movie that should have been our first walkout, but it wasn't.
I think
So we saw a movie called Afraid. AI is Capital.
loved where it
N-
could have gone.
yes, and I think this was Bloomhouse, right? Or was it? I feel like it was Bloomhouse.
Yeah, Columbia and Bloomhouse.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was, and so I
Mm.
definitely expected it to be better.
I just kind of
It,
kept expecting it to like, oh, and now we're at
yeah,
the midpoint. Like, oh,
yeah,
this was a turning point, and it was just like,
yeah. The gist of it is like a man who works at like a tech company, think a la Google. They have they have like a new AI personal assistant, which also like this is a common plot line. So if you're gonna do it, you need to have a unique take, and they did not. Um, but it's like an AI assistant lives with them and like makes the family's life easier. But like the scenes where they were showing how it made people's lives better were so cringe. Like it'd be like mom and dad like, huh, so this is what it's like to not have to parent. Like it's so bad. And like all the jokes were that it was a movie written by ChatGPT and it deserved those jokes. Like what the fuck? It was so bad.
yeah, it's like I love the concept of what yeah like I just said it could have been something where it's like oh this is
Mm-hmm.
what it could be, but it was like such a they didn't like expand on anything, and it
Mm-mm.
was just kind of like, and here's this, and it just felt like trope after trope with good
Mm-hmm.
acting in between. Like it was just kind of like, here's this AI thing, here's this AI thing, here's this could happen, this could happen, this could happen,
Yep.
and it was just kind of like okay, but like no, they wouldn't like dive into any of it, and so it was just kind of like yeah, it was just disappointing. It would have been our
Mm-hmm.
first walkout if we felt like
Yes.
we
If we'd
could
really
do that.
thought of the fact that we could.
But I think the movie that we did walk out on though is also because it was later in the day and we were just
It
like also
was.
tired. And so I
Yes.
feel like we went and it was probably like a 4 p.m. thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it was later. I think it was pre-dinner, and so we were just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, oh, we'll just go eat on the way home or something.
Right.
But like when we did walk out, it was like we're good.
It was just so boring in
But
both of
yeah,
those.
this one I wish it. I think there will be a good version of like an AI film like this.
Oh
But
yeah.
like I just it's there's some room to grow.
Yeah. There was lots of room to grow. Um, I went to see the next one by myself. I saw Smile 2. I loved it. I think I enjoyed this one more than the first one, but I really loved the first one too. This one we're following about to embark on a world tour, global pop sensation Sky Riley begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. Overwhelmed by the escalating horrors and the pressures of fame, Sky is forced to face her past, not pace her fast. Um, it was visually so beautiful. Also like the pop scenes that we did, like or that they did that we did, like I was a part of it. Seeing it in theater was like you felt like you were at a really fucking good pop concert. Like they made some singles that like legit slapped and they were even like all over TikTok for a while. But like Sky Riley, I like need Sky Riley to be real. Um, but
How were the
also,
music scenes compared to Taylor's
I was gonna
movie?
say it was almost that same feeling. Obviously, I have
Nice.
more context and like emotional capital built up with Taylor, but like it was that same feeling. Like I was also having the feeling of like, can we please have more concerts in movie theaters? Like
Yeah,
just rotate them through. I don't care if they're like recent. Like it would just be so cool to see more
yeah.
concerts that way.
That reminds me of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's obviously another a differently emotional story too. Um but this I loved this one. It like also kind of looks at addiction and loneliness within fame and like why those are so easily like found when you're super famous. Um God, it was just so good. The ending is divisive. There are some people who hated it and I'm like that's the direction these movies are always going to go. Like
Mhm.
I thought it was cuz I often say that for me endings that feel inevitable are ones that feel like they stuck the landing even if I don't love all of the outcomes. This ending feels entirely inevitable for the franchise. So I stand by the ending. I forgot how many TikToks I consumed about Smile 2.
Or what? When did you see it? When did this come
I
out?
you were in Charleston.
Okay,
I think it was Charleston. It was one of your longer trips.
so it must have been that was October.
Might have been
Oh
October
yeah,
because I
yeah,
think I had just
October 18th.
started.
That's when it came out. So yeah,
Yeah.
it might have
Yeah, this
been.
is one that I was joking like came out for my birthday.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That
yeah,
was. I remember.
I
I just
loved
remember
it.
seeing the fucking teasers for it like for
Yeah.
months. I feel like I saw like a trailer every time
Mm-mm.
we'd go see any of the movies we just talked about. I feel like I was
Yep.
seeing Smile 2 trailers for like a year, and
Yeah.
I was just glad to not see them anymore. I was because they always
Yeah.
they do the jump scare thing that I
I know you
hate
did.
so
I
much.
knew you didn't even really want to see the movie, so that's why I was like, I'll
Yeah,
just go when you're gone.
yeah. I that was
Yeah.
one I was like not excited to go see the second one where I was just like I was
Mm-mm.
never like oh yeah I just like I knew I was gonna be freaked out by the sounds
Right.
and like the creepy ass smiles. But like
Yes.
it was good. Like the first one was good still, I thought.
Yeah.
Like it was,
I loved it.
but it was just kind of like, all right, I'm about to
Well, what I've also
see.
learned in 2024, like I am such a fan of psychological horror, and that's actually what this one has jump scares too, but it's also very psychological because it's like, is what I'm seeing real?
Do you mean
Why are
physiological?
people what? Not physiological. Oh my gosh, yeah, psychological. So it kind of fits. I became a little bit more of a horror girly in 2024. So now we know, but I loved that movie. I really, really loved it. I'm kind of chasing the high of that one too, a little bit. Not gonna lie. And Parker J. Finn, writer and director, I DM'd him about Smile 1. Didn't hear anything, but I DM'd him again about Smile 2. And so one day, maybe Smile 3, when I DM him, he's gonna see all these DMs I've sent. And then I get to be like,
There's gonna-
look, guys, look who's here.
So one thing that there will be a lot of there'll be a lot of eventually I feel like there's going to be a lot of directors and authors that are going to see a lot of DMs from you. Like there will be a day I feel like they're going to like I hope there's a day that like they're like, "Oh, okay, I should check her out." And then all of a sudden they realize they have like a spam of DMs from you like dating
Yes.
back to 2021. Just because like you
Yep. It's
because you've always taken the approach of like it never hurts to ask, and so
right.
you always just shoot your shot because then eventually you do get like um McCarthy from Oddity.
Damien. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I was like, you just never know. So I am excited
You
for a
don't.
lot of the authors to and directors and writer everybody to check their DMs one day, and then we'll pull this clip and then like, see,
Yes.
we've been trying to get a hold of you.
Yes. That's my authors, Lisa Jewell and wow, the name just left. Alice Feeney are two of those where like I think I've been DMing them for 3 years. So we'll see when those authors come through. Also, Marcus Kleiwer. We all know how much I want We Used to Live Here guy on here. So I'm gonna make that happen eventually. Um so then we saw Venom The Last Dance.
Yep.
I just the way I love the snarky anti-hero superhero anti-superhero
Anti-hero.
anti-hero character like
Deadpool.
Deadpool. I feel like Deadpool humor is very similar to Venom humor. It's just Deadpool gets the R rating. So that's like a big part of the difference, but like I forgot how much I love Tom Hardy and Venom, or I guess I should say whatever.
Yeah.
Um, they're so fun together.
Yeah.
Like it's just
It
their
was,
banter is amazing.
yeah, the back and forth. I think I had such high expectations going into that one because I like the first
I
two a lot
know.
more than the third one, and I
I
understand why
agree
the
with
third
that.
one was the third one. And, like it just made sense. So I
Right.
wasn't like
It
shocked, but
actually did
like
decent at the box office
it
too. I
did
was
really
kind of
well. It did
surprised
like
when I saw
110
that.
million, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, that was no, I still had no. Smile 2 had 138 million in the box office. Like it
Yeah,
did
that
well.
one.
Like
Everyone was surprised by how much better it did than the first one.
But Venom did 478 million in the box
That's.
office.
I remember being shocked.
And
I
they
was
probably
like,
had like $100 million budget because like that I've always said about the Venom movies is like the special effects and the graphics and all of that. I mean, I that's what I would like to watch.
mm-hmm.
I want to. That's what if I were to go book wild, I'd want to talk to some of those animators because like the way that the details happen with all of the things basically liquefying and then coming together and then turning into
Yeah,
something and changing. I'm just like, I can't even wrap my head around some of that. And so it's like to see that. I remember that was like I remember leaving the first one, especially like when they had Eminem doing the song, and I was
yes,
like, you
Venom,
were
Venom,
so
Venom,
hyped
Venom,
up. I feel
Venom.
like yeah, I feel like I left the first two like super hyped up, but like the
Yes.
third one I didn't leave as hyped up because I felt
No.
like they like closed the book. And
Right.
like I do want to see Venom somehow involved in some of the other superhero
I
movies. I just
know.
because he's such a fun character, like the whole idea of Venom, and so it's like I'd love to see him like at least make it like kind of like what Ryan Reynolds has said about Deadpool. Might not have like a full feature,
Mm.
but will be a part of the universe in some way, shape, or
Yep.
form in other movies. And that's like how I would like to see Venom still played, whether it's
That
by
would be
Tom
cool.
Hardy or anybody else. But I just
Mhm.
kind of I feel like Venom's like such a badass. Like I always look. I just when I was searching in Google, my search results came up from like back when I searched it, and it's like Venom statues. I remember whenever I go to like Venom movies, I'm always like, I need a statue of Venom. So I'm
Oh,
always I always
yeah.
like, think it's so cool looking
Mhm.
and wild, and
Yeah.
I also want Deadpool statues. I just like superhero statues in general.
Yeah.
But Venom, though,
I get you.
Venom was it was a good
Yeah,
movie. It
it's the
wasn't
least
the first
good of
two,
the trilogy, but it was, like, still
but
it was
still good.
entertaining still.
Yeah, it was
Mhm.
entertaining. I had fun watching it.
Mhm.
Um,
Same.
so yeah, then you went on a spree. It looks
I
like.
went on a solo spree. Um,
Was this
so
when was this? Probably November.
yes, this was November. So Anora was the first one I saw by myself. I heard so much hype about this movie. I drove because it was such a limited release. I drove like 45 minutes instead of like 17 so that I could see this movie. Had every expectation that I would surely love it from the synopsis because it's about a young escort from Brooklyn who meets and impulsively marries the son of a Russian oligarch. Once the news reaches Russia, her fairy tale is threatened as his parents set out for New York to get the marriage annulled. So, like, I thought it had some thrilling vibes to it. Like, oh, I accidentally married someone whose dad is like dangerous and whatever. Um, and I just figured this would be up my alley. And I was so bored, I think the entire time. Pretty much, it was pretty much the entire time.
You were texting me how bored you were during it.
Yeah, I got that bad. Um, it was not for me. A lot of people, I think this is one where people aren't in between. You typically did love it or hate it. Um, and the people that love it, like I just wanted to be someone who would love it. Like I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, a
You,
modern
yeah.
retelling of Cinderella that's like with a sex worker. Okay, cool. Sounds intriguing. I can't believe how unintrigued I was. And I feel like nothing happened in a lot of ways. And the end scene that people really, really love, I completely understand the message. But like that message alone does not hold my attention for a plot. Like I didn't need the 90 minutes to get to that and there wasn't enough else going on. So those are my thoughts. And I almost feel not feminist talking about not liking that book,
You were
but
disappointed that
here
you
we
didn't
are.
like it because you wanted to be an ally, but you're not. So
I'm not an ally, guys. Not when you're boring.
entertain me. Yeah, you're just.
But
I do remember you texting me throughout, just being like.
ugh,
But
that
the
was so
next movie,
bad.
though, you were texting me in between your
How
editing, I
obsessed I
imagine. Yeah,
was.
you were.
So Heretic made it all worth it because I bounced back so fast from the tragedy that was Anora for me. Oh my god.
You saw these like back to back, right? Like you went like
I
one
went like
day.
3 times in like 10 days.
Yeah, because I think I was
Yeah.
gone for almost a week around then,
Yeah.
and you were like,
Yeah, there was a time
"I'm just
period
gonna
where
go
you
again."
were Yep.
Yeah, this one you
Heretic
loved.
though. Oh my gosh. I have so many notes. This is one I still need to make content about because
Yeah, you
I
need to
just
have like
should.
a whole like
I have
episode
enough
just on
notes on
it.
this one that it's worth it and I kind of wanted to, but we've just had some other things happen here at the end of the year. Um, I'm obsessed. So two girls who are like, I bet early 20s, I think is what it's supposed to be. They are Mormon evangelists. Like they're going door to door to invite people to church slash try to convert them. So they end up at this house of a character played by Hugh Grant, because we all know,
Mr.
even
Reed.
though I'm obsessed with the movies, I don't always remember character names the way Gare does. Mr. Reed. So that's all we know him by. He answers the door and is like, I'd love to hear more, like, come on in. And they're like, we can't actually come in unless there's a woman there. And he's like, my wife's here. And so they're like, okay. So they go in there, they sit down, and he starts asking them questions. And this, it's not a giveaway to say that, like, the longer time goes on, the more they discover they are trapped in this house and are trying to figure out how are we going to get out of here alive, is the gist of it. So I was already intrigued by that premise in general, but this is one of those movies where, like, if thought experiments are interesting to you, which is a new thing that I keep talking about with both books and movies this year. I've always liked thought experiments, but thought experiments, philosophy in general, arguing things from different points of view, um, really getting into religious rhetoric and how it can go wrong, and surprisingly, how it can go right. They do the ending. Hallie and I talked about it off air because we didn't do a spoilers part, but the ending actually ends. You're seeing both sides. You're seeing where religion goes really well and where it goes really poorly. So, yeah, like philosophical, psychological, religious horror, essentially. And it was fantastic. And like one of the things that I saw a lot of people talking about, and I agree so much, Hugh Grant really could have overplayed this character. And he really kept it grounded as like mostly affable seeming man, but like also clearly very creepy sometimes. So like he just killed it in this role. He killed it so hard. Scott Beck and Brian Woods, writers and directors of it. I've DM'd them. They have not seen it. If anyone can connect me with them, connect me with them. Um, and then I had another miss. This is one where that's funny because we're like 3 away from when we finally did walk out. This one I saw alone, and I seriously was considering at about 40 minutes. I was like, I don't care at all.
A lot of people
So I know they won it. The main actor won a Golden Globe. Um, I had seen reviews that kind of said it was thrilling, and that I'd seen reviews of people saying they didn't normally like historical dramas, but this one was so thrilling and fast paced, and that the twist at the end made it worth it. So if I hadn't heard anyone saying the twist would make it worth it, I also really probably would have gotten up, but I was like, oh, it must all be worth it in the end. It's not. It is not a twist at the end. If you love historical dramas, you'll love it. It is for you. If someone told you it's thrilling, it's not for you. If you're there for a twist at the end, it's not for you. There is a reveal. And this movie is what inspired Hallie and my episode about what a reveal versus a twist is. And how like a twist means tons of information that you knew beforehand is now like flipped upside down, and you realize like certain assumptions you were making that led you that direction. A reveal is just like, oh, we didn't know that until now. That's what the ending was. So I've said this on the podcast already. If you love historical dramas, you'll love it. I don't love historical dramas, so it just wasn't for me. That's all. I say I don't like historical dramas. Our next one is Gladiator II.
very much a historical drama. Yep. That one.
It was entertaining.
It was good.
It didn't need to be as long as it was. And I don't know. It just it didn't pack as much punch.
You predicted the like reveal
I did
Very like
pretty
within
early.
the first like glance. Like
Yeah.
you looked at him and you were like, "That's his mom."
Yeah, I did. I
Like
did.
it was immediate, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that would make sense." So I don't know how long it would have taken me to get there,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was. I I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the like. I
I
enjoyed like
enjoyed Denzel.
Denzel. Like every character was unique in the
Yeah.
sense of like they brought something like a Denzel. Like they did some work in this
Yeah.
movie. So it was like, and so it was cool. I always like seeing historical fiction in the sense of
Mhm.
like, oh, this is what it would have been like
Mhm.
seeing like, oh, they filled the Coliseum up. Like whenever I go home and start Googling things like, was this real? And then like,
Yes.
that's like, I
Like
enjoyed
the
those.
sharks.
Yes. So it's like learning that kind of stuff is always fun. I feel like that's kind of like what we watch at home too, is I always lean towards more like nonfiction. Like we watched a spy show, and I was like, let's watch a spy documentary. Like I always want to see like
Right.
how real is this, and
Mhm.
so for me, it's like I like I like seeing how it can like how much of it is Hollywood versus not.
Mhm.
But yeah, being able to see how it kept me entertained. That's probably the best way. Like I was
Yeah.
entertained. I wasn't like
Yes. Are you not
edging my
entertained?
seat. Yeah, exactly. I didn't like the villains right away. Like they made stuff like that very clear. Like, oh, that's the bad
Yes.
guy, and
Uh-huh.
so that was cool. And then it was a little bit drawn out. Like some of the
Mhm.
exposition, like it was kind of like okay, let's.
Yeah.
And I even told you that on our way there. I was like, I'm just kind of like dreading the
You did say that.
the drawn out like all right, we're gonna be traveling to this area now, or like just kind of getting from place to place. But like once
Mhm.
we were in the scene, I was very enjoyed, but
Right.
I was enjoying it a lot. But like the whole getting to the next scene was kind of like okay.
I agree.
Fight scenes were great though. Like I always enjoy good combat scenes.
Mhm.
That was
I
fun.
mean, Pedro Pascal and Paul Mescal together, that's the other part. If you're there for the men,
You're
it's
gonna have the show.
100%. It's
Yeah, you have a
wonderful.
whole show right there. Yeah,
Yeah. You
yeah.
got everything there. For me, it somehow was too long while also having moments where like characters completely change their mind on something way too quickly. So then somehow it's too long, but there were also times where I was like, wait, he was just really, really against that, and he just like changed overnight. Like we don't have an inciting incident for why he changed so quickly. So yeah, it was just some of the plot wasn't extremely strong, but still like visually fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, it was good. It was it was good. It was a
It was good.
it could have been 30 minutes shorter.
Yep, I agree. Because I think it was 2.5 hours. I was like, this one could have been two. It would have
Yeah.
been okay.
But then
Um,
we went and saw and we were looking forward to this one for I was driving back from Charleston again and I was listening to Matthew McConaughey on a podcast and was
mm,
like, "Oh, they just mentioned that he's Interstellar's coming out." So I like texted you and was like, "Tickets, IMAX."
yes,
And so we went and saw Interstellar in IMAX.
yeah. I think it was the 10-year anniversary. Is
Yep.
that what I think it was for the 10th? Yeah, the 10th anniversary. And they released it in IMAX. We obviously would have loved to have seen it in
Like
seven. Is it 70
70
something?
millimeter, I think. Yeah.
I think
Like the
yeah. That's like
true whatever. Right.
yeah. And there's a true. We have one near us, but what I didn't realize is there are only like 7 in the country. So by the time you had texted me, like
It was
6 nights of a theater was completely booked at Keystone here in Indiana. And then when I was like looking in forums, because I was like, how is it that there's not a single seat? Everyone's like, there are people from all of the surrounding states that were like driving in to see it there. So we didn't get to see that, but we did still get to see it in an IMAX theater, um which is worth it. Like
Yeah.
the being in space on something that big was wild. I even knew what was going to happen, and all of the emotional beats are so powerful in this movie. And it's like I did what I didn't do as much 10 years ago when I would watch a movie, and was like reading forums, like reading all kinds of stuff about it. And someone put it really well, and this is not verbatim, but someone said something about like the biggest thing this movie pulls off is stakes that are the epic scale of like humanity. So it grapples with like almost like eternity even, but like just like humankind in general and what the value of like sacrificing for humankind is. It balances that with how much the one-on-one relationship with people can feel like your whole universe. So like
Yeah.
it does the really macro, and then it is the really micro relationship between, I can't think of her name, the father and daughter
Hmm.
at the core of this story. And like it rips my heart out every single fucking time. It is just beautiful. It is a beautiful movie. The composition from Hans Zimmer, just like
Dude, I just read a fun fact about that.
stunning.
Beyond like just because we already, I think we saw something else with Hans Zimmer earlier. Dune,
Dune.
Dune.
Mm-hmm.
I just read like in a subreddit that that was Hans Zimmer lost. He didn't win an Oscar for that soundtrack because Grand Budapest Hotel won that year. I know I never saw that movie, but I know it like did really well.
It did
But
do
I was
well.
like, man, it got
How
lit
do you
in
not win
2014.
for that
But
one?
yeah, I was like, I don't feel like I hear like Instagram reel sounds or TikTok
Right.
sounds with anything from Grand Budapest Hotel. But I
But you will from
always
Interstellar.
hear something from Interstellar. I feel like every time I get on,
Yes.
I'm just always like all the
Yeah.
remakes of it and all that. But it did,
Everything about that movie is
dude.
fantastically done.
Yeah, it said it did 17 million in IMAX during the
Wow.
re-release. I'm
Just
like,
from a re-release. That's
that's,
impressive.
and we were, yeah,
Because it was a limited re-release too.
yeah,
Wow.
it was fun. I was exactly what I expected, and I do remember turning to you midway through, maybe like
Hmm.
40%, and I was like, I don't even know what this is about. I thought I did, and it
Yeah,
was
you were
just
like, I don't even remember.
I was like, I don't remember anything about this movie, and so I thought I did, but what I realized is I just remember scenes and like the fun facts about the movie, like they
Hmm.
planted a whole bunch of corn to drive through the fields. Like I remember like hearing all of the fun facts about the film, but
Hmm.
never any of the actual like, oh, this is the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it was,
Murph. Murph is his daughter. I just saw the name. I was like, I knew it was something very specific.
and Timmy Chalamet was on it.
I know. And I totally forgot that he was in it.
Yeah, I was like, oh
I
yeah,
totally forgot. Well, and what is kind of nice, because as we discussed, we actually saw Babygirl in January. So Interstellar was technically our last movie of the
that was a
year.
good
So
one
that
to
was a
send off.
powerful way to go out on.
Yeah, I would say yeah. So with Babygirl though, we started the year off on an L, and
On
like
an L.
we wanted to like it.
Yes, I
Like we were both
expected
like,
to.
oh, this seems like it'll be kind of cool.
Hmm.
And it was just like the same scene over and over again, it felt like. And it was just kind
I
of like
agree.
there was nothing. And you definitely went to like a 7:30 or 8 o'clock showing. And I know that we were
Yes.
like it was later for us and we
Well,
were
and
just
we couldn't go because we'd been sick. So it
yeah.
was also like we were like, okay, we're not testing positive. Like we can go. And so it was like I even still felt kind of rough because I like
And like so basically we went kind of like all right, let's go see it. I mean, Nicole Kidman is great actress. Like everything she's in is seems to be pretty good. We watched like an actors on
mhm.
actors. I think it's from Vanity Fair with her and
Is it? I think
Zendaya.
that's who it
Yeah,
is.
but we saw
Yes.
like it was like
Mhm.
fun hearing her talk about the movie, and we were
Right.
like, okay, this like she really wanted this role, and
Mhm.
it was just kind of like I don't know. I just like everything was predictable. Nothing was like, and it was like just assumed that things just, I don't know.
There's a part where like it happens so quickly that you still are like, why? How did this intern just know that the CEO wanted to be walked like a dog? Like, how did he just know
Yeah,
that quickly?
yeah,
Was a little bit difficult
I
for me
missed
to
that.
jump
I
through.
didn't, yeah, I couldn't, and maybe we weren't the target audience for it, but like I just, yeah, there was,
Right.
it was, and we finally decided. So we were like 35 minutes in, because if you recall from the first episode we did, I always start my
Hmm.
timer so we can kind of keep track of like, is the pacing good? Like if we're like doing references later
Hmm.
on, like right now, it were 35 minutes in,
Yep.
and I was like, "Ugh, I don't know."
That was when I think you said, I don't know what this is
Yeah, I'm
about.
like, what? Because it just felt like watching people live in their like
Yes.
sneaky ways, and I was just like,
Hmm.
okay. Or like, what
Right. And it was
else? Like,
like,
I was like, it felt like it should have just like that whole plot should have been like a B plot to something much
yes.
bigger. And then I
Yes.
felt like that would have probably kept things like maybe if
Yeah.
I don't know, but it felt like
Well,
that.
and it was pure erotica is the truth of it, with like what you're talking about is something called slice of life too. But then the scenes in between it are so boring and don't seem to be going anywhere that you're just like, what am I watching right now? Is how it felt for us. I know there are people who did love it.
But we left at the point where it was like he was dancing, and it was like an 80s sounding background
Father
track,
figure,
and I was just like,
which I didn't know how creepy.
yeah, see, I
Such a
didn't even,
creepy song.
I just knew that like once I knew I was gonna have to like sit through that
Hmm.
after she had just been like
Standing in a
naked
corner.
and like like just kind of like do this, and it was just kind of like,
Yeah.
but she's like uncomfortable and like feeling insecure. I was like, it's just it was an uncomfortable scene because she did
Yes,
act it really well,
she did.
but then it was like the power dynamic shifted, and I was like, okay, cool. I love a good powerful woman.
Right.
And then all of a sudden this dude's dancing, and I was like, okay, like,
We don't do singing in movies. We
yeah,
don't really enjoy dancing montages.
you know, yeah, it's like, okay, let's get to the next scene. And it just, yeah, I think, yeah, it wasn't
Vibes
until
aren't
now
enough for us, unfortunately.
yeah, it was our first walkout ever.
Hmm.
I think it gave us permission to walk out on other movies.
That's how I kind of looked at it.
I think for people that enjoy that realm with like erotica and the slice of life
Hmm.
type, like I do think like for what it was, I do think
Right.
like the actors did their job. I think visually it was like everybody did their job, but it was just plot wise.
It
I
just
don't
didn't.
I don't know if it
Yeah.
did its job for me.
Yeah.
So
And like you were saying, because they called it an erotic thriller. And then you were like, so was the thrilling part just that like she could lose everything? Like, is that the reason they
yeah,
tacked on thrilling? Because like, doesn't feel like enough to pull a plot
yeah.
forward
And it
for
just seems like
us.
such a like, oh, he's gonna dangle this carrot, like I could ruin everything for you. I'm like, that's just once again, it's
I
such a
know.
like B plot to me. Where
Hmm.
it's like if she had something like if she was like really doing something else and then she started this like side piece, then I would be like, okay, what's going on with that situation? But,
Hmm.
like let's get back to the main one. And then it's
Yeah,
like, but it just felt it was just it was our first walkout, and I was
it
just
was.
like, it felt weird though walking out of a movie for the first time.
I
That
know.
was I was like, how do we do this? Like
I know.
I was like, well, I'm not gonna have to explain myself to anybody here.
No, there weren't even that many people there
No, there
either.
wasn't. We saw it pretty late into its
Yeah.
release, but yeah, it was like I think it'd be hard walking out of a movie if we like weren't near the aisle and we had to walk
Hmm.
by people and walk. I don't know. It was pretty bad where I would have probably still walked. I'm like, because think about like Deadpool, like walking out of
Yes.
Dead, like a full packed theater
Yeah.
was like, I can't. Like,
Yeah.
I'm one of the few people in here that just can't
Right.
even.
Yeah.
But yeah, there
I
was
think
only a handful of people there with us.
Yeah, I think if you're alone, it just looks like you're going to the bathroom is the funny
Yeah.
part. It was the fact that we both got up at the same
It
time, but
was the
like
fact that we
otherwise
both
people get up all the time and you're like not you don't think about them like and then
no.
sometimes they pop back on and you're like, "Oh yeah, they went to the bathroom."
Yeah, and I was like, at first, I was like playing through. It was like also when I realized, like, when this dancing, I was like, okay, so do I just like say I'm going to the bathroom and then she follows me out later? I'm like, no, we just fucking
We
leave.
can just
Let's
leave.
just leave. I don't know. I was being such a codependent about
I
it. Like,
know.
I should probably make sure that like we were sneaky about it. I'm like,
I know. I felt like a codependent because some people loved it. And so I was like, I don't even want to say that I didn't like it. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, I don't, well, and it doesn't matter if someone else gets offended, but like, I don't get offended if someone doesn't like
a book or
thrillers,
something.
for
Yeah,
example. Like, I have plenty of friends who are never going to read anything similar to what I read. So, like, it's just preference. Everyone's allowed to have preference. And I had even said on the podcast before I'd seen it, I was like, I'm intrigued by this. I'm excited for it. But then I even said if it's uh no plot and all vibes, like it won't do it for me. So I knew. And then that's pretty much what happened.
that
So
was it. That's a good way to
you just
put it.
can't help what clicks with you and what doesn't.
Do you want to take a guess on which movie did the most in the box office last year?
It wasn't Deadpool and Wolverine. It was Inside Out 2.
You want to take a guess how much?
Was it 200 billion?
Significantly less.
Less. Why did I
It
think it was billions?
it was. It was
Oh,
1.7 billion.
okay. See, and I couldn't remember if it was like 2 billion or 200, almost 200 billion.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of money.
Um, and then Deadpool Wolverine did 1.3.
It got close,
And
especially
then
for an R-rated movie versus a G-rated movie.
Moana 2 did
Moana.
about 1 bill.
I did hear a
Despicable
lot of people go see that, even adults.
Despicable Me 4 did 969.
No shit, they keep making those. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, inside it was 3. So and then Dune Part 2 did
The other was there were a
714
bunch of
million.
sequels.
Yeah, you're right. It was all sequels in the top 5.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and 3 of them were animated, so very family
Yes.
friendly.
Yep. Because
Um,
you get the global and family.
Twisters did 268 million.
I believe it.
I
It's very accessible. Like it's gonna work for a lot of people.
Yeah,
And you can for parents who are like not freaking out about PG-13 ratings, like it definitely appeals even to like 10-ish year olds, I would assume, too.
Challengers did 96 million.
Wow, so it did better than
Did well.
I thought it would, based on like no one else in Indiana seeing it that I talked to.
Bad Boys is one that I'm curious what that did. It did 400 million. That's
Sequel again. This is why
that's sequel.
some people get mad and are like, why does Hollywood not do anything new? They do, but when this many people keep going to sequels, that's why. Like,
We skipped Saturday night.
oh, we did skip Saturday night
Why did we skip? We just kind of
because it was not memorable. It wasn't bad and it wasn't good. Like
yeah.
it
Yeah.
was in the middle for me, and I think if you lived that experience of the
Would have been
first Saturday
awesome if you
night,
lived it.
I
Yeah.
think you would, because even as like a general fan of comedy, I still don't have like the breadth of knowing all of those characters, or not characters, real people,
Yeah.
in general. So I think that would probably make it better, but it wasn't as, I don't know, like it wasn't as fun as I thought it would be.
I like the concept of like how they filmed it all within like that time frame of like
Yeah.
leading up to it. I wasn't expecting that. I thought that was really
Yeah.
cool. Um, but it was just kind of like, okay.
There's not much
I
that
knew
stood
that
out.
like I couldn't appreciate it as much as
Yep.
like the person that would have grown up with it or does love the history of it. And so it's
Mhm.
like I do feel like it was almost like a movie probably that the industry loved as well. Like people that
Yes.
are like in
Hmm.
the industry. Like think about how many people are like in the web of connections
Yeah.
connected to that series and that show and the network and
Hmm.
like so it's why it did almost 10 million.
Oh, that's good.
Fall Guy did 181 million.
I think that was mostly its budget. I
I
know it
believe.
wasn't super profitable. And I don't understand why. I thought it was fantastic. And even like Jamie and Cody watched it with their kids. So like it even like worked on multiple age levels, but it did, I remember people saying like they thought it was going to be bigger than that.
I was seeing what their budget was somewhere. Estimated budget was 125 million. So they still
Yeah.
made
They made
7,
millions.
50 million. Yeah, not
Yeah.
bad. Civil War did 126 million.
I bet it, and that was a smaller budget. That was a much smaller
The
budget.
estimated budget was 50 million according to Google,
Yeah, that's still
which
smaller.
seems like quite a bit, but
Hmm.
I still think I wonder.
It's on the high side of a low budget,
Yeah,
basically.
here's what I wanted. I think I mentioned it in the first episode, but Monkey Man.
Oh yes, that
Like
one
it
is
says
even
budget
wilder.
10 million. I want to see where's the
Oh,
IMDb.
it deserves so much more attention than it got this year. So if anyone knows Dev Patel, I would definitely interview him too,
Yeah,
or Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele would be a really fun one.
Oh, it'd be so cool.
Um, let me see production. Oh, it says it's available in IMDb Pro. Dang.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, well, it says Wikipedia says it did 35 million worldwide against a $10 million budget. But yeah,
That's what I
10
just
million
thought
though
too.
for like what they pulled off in that movie. I would
Yes.
say so. We could probably put a bow on this, but like my top movies this year, if I were to like, I would say Dune 2. I'm not. This isn't in order yet.
Right.
Dune 2, Deadpool, The Fall, and Twisters. That was a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say Dune 2 was probably my favorite. Like I think part of that was the experience of leading up to it
Yeah.
because we saw Dune in theaters like a couple weeks prior, and then
Mm-hmm.
we like watched everything that we could find on Dune
Yeah.
2, and then like when it like that when we saw the scenes when the music just hit and everything, I was just like, this
Mm-hmm.
this is it. I would say Dune 2 is probably my favorite. And then I would say, I wanted to say Anyone But You would be up there. It's like in my top five because it was just a
Yeah.
fun
It
movie.
was really
And
good.
but I would say Deadpool would be like a close number. Deadpool might be first just because like it was so good. Like I
Yep.
love anything meta and they just,
It's so meta.
yeah, I would say Deadpool,
There are
Deadpool,
so many.
Dune, Deadpool, Dune. It Ends With Us has also got to be my top five. I feel like
Nice.
I just thought it was such a good like.
It's
It
really
was
good
just so well
storytelling.
done. It gave you like the highs of highs and lows of lows, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and anytime like a story can do that, and then like visually
Yes.
it was just really good too. But like just
Yeah.
like all of the like back and forth stuff, like and when I can keep up with it,
Yeah.
that's a recipe for a good movie.
Right.
When I can
Yeah.
keep up with the back and forth.
Mine are like, because I put stars by, I went through and put like stars
Yeah,
by
what those
the
are.
ones that I would basically consider for my top five. And there are so many that it's still hard for me to tell. But like the ones that stood out the most, like Dune as a collective experience, I agree. But Monkey Man, Challengers, Strange Darling, um, and Blink Twice are just, they all stand out a lot for me. If I was going to do a top, that's a top four. So if I was going to do a top five, I'd probably, and Heretic would be in the five. But it's just hard. It's because they're such different genres.
I know,
Because
because
it's
like
like
putting
Deadpool and
American Fiction
Wolverine, I
next to,
thoroughly loved.
yeah,
But like some of these that stand out to me are the ones that were like more unique stories, like in that sense. So it's hard. I would almost have to do it by genre.
because Argyle was also just fun until it
Yes.
wasn't, but it was
Yeah,
fun.
I
But like
agree.
all the way through though, like I'd say both of our top fours. Yeah, the fifth one is a little bit tricky to
Yeah.
isolate, but because Challengers is up there as well, like because they did the
I
back and
know.
forth as well.
So
So
memorable.
I'd
Yeah,
probably
so
put
for like
Challengers up
contemporary
there.
fiction, like Challengers would probably be what I would pick.
Yeah,
Because it's
and
not really a thriller. It was unique. I loved it so much
it
though.
was so good. Yeah, it was a pretty solid year, except
It
for
really
the start of
was. The fact that I
2025.
have like 10 that I think were all really good is pretty
Yeah,
exciting.
that's a pretty solid. Like, yeah, I do feel like there was only like a few that we were like,
Mm-hmm. Like truly we're like, no,
why
this
are
is
we
not
here
for
right
us.
now? Yeah,
Yeah.
like the trailer was better than the movie, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
the yeah overall though, and then then coming up then movie wise, we've got the Bob Dylan movie.
Yeah. I was looking because I hadn't looked in a little bit. I think there was one just came out that I'm interested in. Den of Thieves. It looks like it's kind of a action thriller with Gerard Butler and O'Shea Jackson Jr. So that one we might like. The Brutalist, everyone is obsessed with, and it's just not coming to a theater near us, so that's cool.
That one, yeah,
Um,
did really well with the
but A
awards.
Complete Unknown. Oh, there is one. I haven't seen much about it, but there's one coming out. Oh, it's out now in Indiana too. The Last Showgirl with Pamela Anderson. I need to like see what people were thinking, but
That's
that's
really
kind of
nice.
cool that she's in a movie again. Um, but yeah, when you see A Complete Unknown.
28 years later, another follow up. That's an F1 movie with Brad Pitt. That'll be fun in theaters.
Oh yeah.
Jurassic World Rebirth. Scarlett Johansson.
Well, those were. I was surprised by how much I liked the Chris Pratt
Yeah, those are always just kind of
one.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have to expect much from them.
Oh my
That
gosh. Yes.
Superman
One
movie
of them
looks like
days.
it
Oh,
might
it's
be good.
out.
Which one?
Oh no, this is for January 16th. One of them days is Kiki Palmer and SZA in it, but it's produced. Even when we saw the trailer for it, I was like, this feels like Issa Rae, and she does produce it. I can't
Yeah, I
remember
do
if she's
remember. Yeah,
directing
you
it.
said that before.
Yeah, I was like, this has to be Issa, and it
Mm.
was.
Another Michael Jackson movie. So I
Oh, I
bet that'll be kind of
forgot
like
about
another.
that.
We might be seeing more musical.
Biopics.
Yeah, another Mission
Yeah.
Impossible. Always just entertaining. I feel like
Yeah, they're still really good.
I am interested to see this new Superman movie
Yes,
though.
that one
That'll
looks
be kind of
good.
fun just to see what they do with that.
Yeah. There's one coming out called The Companion that is about like having a robot AI girlfriend. So the premise is there. We'll see if it delivers. Oh wow, so there are a lot coming out in this last 2 weeks of January that we'll want to see. Finally. Yeah. Movies.
Movies. We'll have to do one on TV shows sometime.
Yeah, we've had really good luck with
Yeah, we're on a pretty solid streak.
Briefly, Slow Horses, Black Doves,
The Penguin
uh,
currently.
The Penguin, but Severance. You watched the first
Severance.
season of Severance for the first time. I watched it for the second time. I didn't even remember everything. There were some very clear things that I remembered. and it was actually a really good rewatch. And I rarely rewatch, as people have heard,
Yeah.
but this one also came out 2.5 years ago, and it's really cerebral, heady, psychological sci-fi essentially. So there's so much to remember, and it came out 2.5 years ago, and then the writer's strike happened. I am so excited for season 2. It starts in 3 days. So,
Well,
my people who've been enjoying philosophical horror in regards to books recently, or psychological horror, I will tell you that if you like slightly sci fi stuff, this is also the show for you.
yeah.
Like, it has a lot of that going on. There's like a bunch to theorize about. There are a bunch of numbers, there are a bunch of symbols, and like, what do they all mean? I am
And yeah.
so excited for this new season to start airing and to theorize with everyone on the internet.
Is that on Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So when this comes
Friday.
out, we'll be probably watching.
Yeah, the day that this airs is when the season 2 premiere is.
Nice.
And I think I am. I mean, as long as I can find time between now and the weekend, I'm going to do a season 1 recap / reactions video. So look for that.
I wish you best of luck. I know your work schedule.
Yeah, I don't know when it's gonna happen, but I really need to I need to at least, even if I didn't do a full reactions, I need to
Just
at
go over your
least try to
notes.
do the like 10-minute recap.
Yeah, like because you definitely. I mean, you were taking notes very hardcore during that.
I have so many fucking notes. Like, I know that I could do a 2-hour reaction one that might do well, because those have been doing well, but I don't know when it's gonna happen. I also have books to read.
Yeah, I was gonna say you still have booking to do.
Yeah, I do. So speaking of, I'm gonna go do some more of those things.